is Radio Prague International, coming to you from the Czech capital.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sierra Krieger-Wolf, and you're listening to Czechia in 30 Minutes, the show where we give you a rundown of what's recently been happening in the country in just half an hour. Coming up on today's show, Czech tennis players Karolína Muchová and Jakub Menšík claimed their first Grand Slam title at the US Open. The multi-genre Obnaženi festival brings together multiple generations. And lastly, we'll hear from filmmaker Karen Kruger about her documentary at the Jewish cultural Štetl Fest. But first, the news with Ian Willoughby.
News.
The Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the Iranian ambassador to Prague after Tehran placed Radio Farda, which is based in the city, on a list of military targets. The station is operated by the US-funded Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Czech Foreign Minister Petr Matsenka said on Thursday that the meeting with the Iranian diplomat would take place at the soonest possible date and would be at the level of Director of the Middle East Department at the ministry. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Prague said in a statement that Radio Farda had long provided Iranians with independent news coverage in situations where the country's regime restricts internet access, censors information and suppresses freedom of speech. Prime Minister Andrej Babiš and European Council President Antonio Costa expressed their support for the European Union's enlargement process following a joint meeting in Prague on Thursday. At a news conference, the Czech Prime Minister reiterated his hope that Montenegro will join the EU in 2008. For his part, Mr. Costa described the enlargement process as a geopolitical priority, mentioning Moldova and Ukraine, in addition to the countries of the Western Balkans. The Czech Republic continues to face a risk from one-time agents being used for sabotage attacks directed by Russia, according to a report from the country's domestic intelligence service known as BIS, published on Thursday. The agency said the threat primarily concerned entities involved in the production or distribution of aid intended for Ukraine. Last year, Czech bodies were also the target of several cyber attacks from actors linked to China, while hackers linked to Russia were also active in this regard, according to BIS's annual report for 2015. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Prague has rejected false reports that Poland is seeking to forcibly reclaim Czech territory, saying that Poland is among Czechia's closest and most important partners. Seznam Zprávy reported this week that a disinformation campaign was seeking to exploit a minor border dispute in a bid to stoke tensions between the two nations. The news outlet said Czech agencies were acting on the assumption Russia was behind this campaign. The Czech Foreign Ministry said on social media that the two sides were pursuing a practical and mutually beneficial solution to the dispute, which dates back to the 1950s. Senior officials in Warsaw, including Prime Minister Donald Tusk, have highlighted Polish-Czech connections in online posts. The number of children in Czech preschools in the last academic year was lower than 350,000 for the first time since 2012-2013, according to official data released on Thursday. Over the past 3 years, the number of children in kindergartens fell by over 20%, or by nearly 6%. The trend is linked to the number of births in Czechia, which has been steadily falling for 5 years in a row. The Czech Republic's biggest brewery, Plzeňský Prázdroj, is set to increase the prices of its draft and some canned beers by 2.6% at the beginning of October, a spokesperson said on Thursday. Its flagship Pilsner Urquell lager has not gone up in price for 3 years. Representatives said the main reason for the increase in beer prices is the rising cost of materials and commodities as a result of the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz stemming from the war in the Middle East. And the weather forecast, it should be overcast in Czechia on Friday with an average high temperature of 29 degrees Celsius. The following days are also expected to be cloudy with lower temperatures.
The Czech tennis players Jakub Menšík and Karolína Muchová have won the mixed doubles title at the US Open, claiming their first Grand Slam title. The pair had only entered the tournament on a wild card and now earned a prize of $1 million. Ruth Frankova has the story.
New York, let's hear it for your 2026 U.S. Open Mixed Doubles Champions, Karolína Muchová and Jakub Menšík.
The victory comes just 3 days before the start of the US Open singles tournament, where Muchová will be seeded 7th and Menšík 17th. They secured the mixed doubles title after saving 2 match points in their semi-final against Andrei Rublev and Mira Andreeva, before beating the 4th-seeded Italian-Swiss pairing of Flavio Cobolli and Belinda Bencic 6-3, 1-6 and 10-6 in the final. In the on-court interview during the award ceremony, Muchová said she had not expected to be standing there with the trophy.
I think at the end, really, the matching outfits made a difference for us. No, really, I wasn't really expecting to be standing here tonight. We came out just having fun and enjoyed these mixed doubles, and now we are standing here almost with a trophy soon. So I think we did something right, and thanks Jakub for carrying me through this doubles event.
The 30-year-old, who returned to competition after minor surgery in July, said the mixed doubles had been a good way to start the US Open and prepare for the singles tournament. Menšík, who turns 21 next week, also said he had not expected the pair to go so far.
It's my first time standing here as well. Didn't expect that coming, before the tournament, but it's such a great fun. It was amazing to play and to start the US Open like that. Of course, the main event for, I guess, all of us is starting next week, so it's really great preparation for all of us. And like I said, I enjoyed every moment on the court.
Menšík and Muchová made the better start, breaking in the 4th game to take the first set. Cobolli and Bencic responded in the second, winning 5 games in a row from 1-1 to force a super tie break. The Czechs then took control, going 4-1 up and reaching match point at 9-6. Their opponents saved the first 2 match points, but Menšík sealed the win with an ace on the third. The semi-final had been even more dramatic. After taking the first set against Rublev and Andreeva in a tie-break, the Czechs lost the second and fell 5-8 behind in the deciding super tie-break. They then faced 2 match points at 7-9, but Andreeva missed the first and Menšík saved the second with an ace. The Czechs won the final 2 points to reach the final. This year's mixed doubles tournament used a shortened format, with sets going to 4 games and a super tie-break replacing the third set.
That was Ruth Frankova. A boomer sitting next to a Gen Alpha kid, both clapping at the same performance. This is what it might look like at the intergenerational festival Obnaženi, or in English, Uncovered, taking place in the town of Chomutov. Its aim is to bring generations together and is reflected not only in the audience but also on stage. Romana Grajcerova with the details.
The 21st edition of the Obnaženi Festival will focus this year on intergenerational themes, ranging from contemporary dance and theater to music and film, as well as visual arts and public discussions. Different generations will have the opportunity to meet not only the audience, but also directly on stage through collaborative performances. The festival will take place at several unconventional venues in Chomutov, including St. Catherine's Church, the courtyard of the Rouge Café and the Chomutov Library. According to festival co-founder Jana Timiopoulou, Thursday's dance film evening will be unique in its own right.
All of the films are connected by the theme of aging. Some focus more on intergenerational relationships, while others explore memory or a kind of closeness, which can be human but also, for example, spatial. One of the films we are showing is about the relationship between architecture and the body, so the same theme is explored from a wide range of perspectives.
The festival's main theme is also reflected in its music program. One of the bands performing will be the Czech duo Papalescu 2.
Je to česká kapela, je to projekt Mojmíra Papalescu, kterýho možná jako posluchači už budou znát.
It's a project by Moimir Populescu, who has been a well-known figure on the Czech music scene for several years. Populescu, too, is a project he creates with his son. Musically, they move between electronic and acoustic music, resulting in a meeting of two generations and two different approaches to music.
The dance theatre production Entropie also approaches the theme in an original way, featuring not only professional dancers and actors but also performers aged between 70 and 83. The performance is scheduled for Saturday at the City Theatre.
The production features dancers and professional performers aged between 20 and 30 who make their living through movement and performance on stage. At the same time, they share the stage with senior performers aged between 70 and 83 who dance together with them, creating a live intergenerational encounter on stage.
Festival participants who are not part of the official program have the opportunity to explore movement firsthand in a dance workshop called Dance Well. It is an international project that brings together contemporary dance, body care, and community gatherings. The event is open to everyone, regardless of age, previous experience, or physical ability.
Workshop Dancewell je vedený vlastně zase profesionálními tanečníky.
The Dancewell workshop is led by professional dancers who are trained in this method, which focuses on working with people with various types of disabilities. Seniors with limited mobility can take part, as can people with conditions such as Parkinson's disease. At the same time, of course, we are open to participation from younger generations as well.
Each year, the Obnaženi festival is dedicated to a theme that resonates with society, and it is no coincidence that this year the organizers chose the theme Between Generations.
In Czech society, this is a topic that raises plenty of questions for each of us. What can we pass on to one another? How can different generations enrich each other? But of course, it also touches on intergenerational misunderstandings and divides. These are all themes that we would like to explore, sometimes poetically, sometimes through discussions, or by searching for common questions and answers. We want to create a space where different generations can meet and enrich one another, and where we can identify areas where there are still gaps that we can work on.
One of the main ambitions of the festival, which begins on Thursday and ends on Sunday, the 30th of August, is to create a lasting space for intergenerational encounters and help build communities that will continue to exist even after the main program of the Obnaženi festival comes to an end.
Thank you, Romana Grajcerova, for that story. Štetl Fest is underway in Brno, bringing together Jewish culture, history, and stories of families with roots in the city. Among this year's guests is American Holocaust educator and filmmaker Karen Kruger, who is presenting her documentary, Letters from Brno. She spoke to Vít Bohanka about discovering her family's hidden Jewish past and what returning to Brno means to her today.
It is a documentary film. It's called Letters from Brno, and it is the story of how I discovered that my mother was Jewish. By the way, my mother and her sister both hid their pasts. And so I didn't find out she was Jewish till a relative told me when I was in university. And I describe it as a switch went off of an insatiable curiosity to put this family puzzle, this history together, because what I could see is she was so upset when I found out that she was Jewish, and she was very angry that the relative told me because she was still hiding it. I think, as a Kindertransport who had been really traumatized by that whole experience.
By the way, I don't want to throw names around, but when I interviewed Madeleine Albright, her story was very similar in the sense that she didn't know she was Jewish until much later in her life, basically.
Yeah, and it was because people ask me. By the way, the documentary film that we're showing this afternoon, it's on it's on PBS, nationwide in the U.S. Not anywhere else yet. I would love to get it on public television, here in the Czech Republic. It just hasn't happened. But we also recently completed a short film called Daisy and Erica, and it's what happened to the girls after the war. The most common question that we get when we screen the film, and we've shown it all over the world, is, but what happened to the girls? And so the director started this short film like 3 years ago and just finished it recently. And so the premiere of it is going to be this afternoon after Letters from Brno.
So now we are speaking here in Ivančice, Ivančice u Brna, I should say. And in a way, this is a place where so much tragedy happened, to your ancestors. What sort of feeling did you have when you first came, I suppose, after 1989 sometime?
Right. Actually, the first time was 2005. And being here, by the way, my mom came on that trip last minute. She never returned to the Czech Republic after she left when she was 10 years old. And never. And she wasn't going to come. We were invited because we're descendants, and that was her cousin, George Plachek. We were invited to come to this, and I came with my daughter, Erica, and my brother, Scott. And at the last minute, my mom said she wanted to come, so she came. And it was amazing to see her house where she grew up, and then and to see the factory where Armin worked here. The villa was in such, disrepair. Actually, no, that's not true. That was the next time I came a few years later. No, because the four owners who took over during communism never let any descendants behind the gates. This was the first time they let any Plachek descendants visit. And to go in here, they turned it into offices, and one of the owners was describing very graphically, what had happened with Fritz Plachek and they called it a suicide. The family thinks that he was murdered by Gestapo, but it was so upsetting to Fritz's son, that he came running out and was in tears. And what upset me, hearing that was very disturbing. But when we were in Brno and someone did a tour of the Placheks and all the places the family lived, and I know my grandfather owned several of these homes that were all stolen. And the person, giving the tour would just say, oh yes, and the Placheks own this place, and then walked down the street, the Placheks own this place and this place, and I felt myself getting so angry, and I didn't know why, and it took me a few days to really process it, and I realized it wasn't just that these things were all stolen, these owners were all murdered, but it was that no one said, not once, we're so sorry about what happened to your family, not once. And that's what really bothered me. And it's good for me telling you this right now because I'm going to be asked that question. They already gave me a list of all these questions we're going to be talking about on Sunday. And so I've been formulating, my response. And it was that not one person said, it acknowledged, the horrible tragedies that happened. It was almost like, you're on tour in Paris and hearing about historical buildings and the families that live there with a detachment and a lack of empathy, I think, that was really painful for me. But I think it took me leaving and getting back to the U.S. before I could figure out why I got so emotional about it. It's complex.
But I'm wondering, here we are, 2026, there's Štetl Fest in Brno. Do you feel a little better about, the whole thing and the whole tragedy that happened?
I do feel better, and part of it is, I was here at the Štetl Fest in 2023 to show Letters from Brno, and I could not believe, I didn't know what the Shtetl Fest was. I could not believe the reception I had, how warmly I was welcomed, how kindly I was treated. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, they see me as representing a family that was loved. The Placheks were, Rabbi Baruch Plachek was very much loved in the Jewish community. And I think a lot of people, they still feel that way, even though they didn't know. Of course, I never met him, but this family's standing in the Jewish community, I think, was such that I felt like I was embraced by strangers, and it was very unexpected. And I've been coming back. I'm trying to get Czech citizenship. I want to move here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah. And I've done a ton of work in schools in Brno. I have a Holocaust curriculum that's based on the film and this massive archive that I have of all these letters, which is why the film is Letters from Brno. And so I have been going to schools, like I said, really all over the world. But I feel like the students here in Brno and the teachers here welcome me in a way that I'm not even welcomed in schools in the U.S. Even schools, I used to be a school administrator, schools that I've worked with, I'm more welcomed here and embraced here. And I really feel that difference. And so, yes, my feelings have changed completely.
We've been living through a time of a new wave of anti-Semitism because of what's going on in Gaza. Do you kind of feel that? Do you experience that? Is that something that bothers you?
Yes, absolutely. And since October 7th, I've been canceled at schools in England and in the U.S., especially when those campus protests were happening. And they said we can't bring any Holocaust content onto campus. And then since Trump's been elected, and I'm fine getting political, by the way, can't stand the man and what he's doing. He's ruining not only our country, but the world. But I feel like Brno is home for me. I do. I do. I'm so happy when I'm here, especially when I'm doing work in schools and everything. But we have so many friends here now, and I am so embraced by the Jewish community, and I feel like so many teachers. It's almost like when I used to, when I was a teacher, a classroom teacher in the States, and kids would come up to me, they'd had me years before that I wouldn't necessarily recognize. I feel like teachers here come up to and recognize me, and I don't necessarily remember them, but they'll say, "You were at our school. We saw your film. You brought the archive." The students still talk about it, and that happens more here, than it does in LA, because I can't get into schools in LA, frankly, especially now where people are so hesitant, about teaching the Holocaust.
As you mentioned, you are trying to become a Czech citizen, right? How do you go about it? And what are you going to do? Are you going to settle in Brno or what?
Yes, yeah. But the process is complicated. It's a little bit on the Czech side, but honestly, it's getting all the paperwork. That stupid Doge, they fired so many people in government that we're processing a lot of these forms that you have to have. And so the wait time to even get them can be 7 to 12 months for me to even get a form. For example, my father's my mother's naturalization papers. And I can't do anything until I have those. And so I've been working on it for 2 years, and I still need those papers, but pretty much everything else is in place. And I have people who want to advocate for me too, if I get rejected. But I don't think I will. Some people have said jokingly here, just show them your film. They cannot deny that you are a descendant going back like 5 or 6 generations here in Brno. So that's not how it works.
So you have to deal with the Consul General, I suppose, in LA. Consul General?
And there's a new one. I knew the Consul General in LA, and he was going to help, and then he just got replaced, and now they don't even let people come in person until you have all your forms. They said, don't even bother. And you can't call and reach a voice. And
I see. Everything is...
They're only open 3 half days a week, from 9 to 12, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I know.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Anyway, but I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it, so that's the plan. And
yes.
Do you already have a place where you want to stay in Brno?
No, I love so many parts of it. No, wouldn't it be funny if I could end up getting an apartment in what was my mother's home? But this is a little outside, and I don't necessarily, after LA, want to have another car. Brno's such a walkable city, and public transportation is fabulous. So.
Karen Kruger, American Holocaust educator and filmmaker, speaking there to Vít Bohanka. You can hear the full version of the interview on Czechcast, our podcast in English about all things Czech, available on major podcast platforms. For more news, features, interviews, photos, and videos from Czechia, visit our website at www.radio.cz. You can also browse our full archive of broadcasts and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. That's all for today. I'm Sierra Krieger-Wolf. Thank you for listening and have a beautiful rest of your day.